Hello, everyone. Today's VR is celebrating 1,000 subs for Sammy Thunder. Congratulations. Sammy would like us to show some of our memorabilia collection instead of the usual baseball cards that we show. So I got a few things together. My major interest in outside of baseball cards is ticket stubs. So I'm going to go through some ticket stubs and tie it together with a few pieces of memorabilia that I have. So we'll start off with hockey, then get into some boxing, wrestling, football, and then into baseball at the very end. So the first item I have is a ticket stub from the World Hockey Association, Minnesota Fighting Saints versus Houston. Houston was the Arrows at the time. Significance of this stub is that Gordie Howe played in the game. And I do have a signed Gordie Howe puck, Mr. Hockey, number 9. I once stood in line with my brother for an hour and a half to get Gordie Howe's autograph at a sports card show up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It was worth it. Him and his sons were there signing, and Gordie was very friendly. The next stub is the 1991 Stanley Cup Finals in Minnesota. I was at that game. As you can see, it's row 1. We were right up against the glass. I got the ticket from some friends in Winnipeg. They drove down to Minnesota. And before the game started, there was 4 of them and me, so there's 5 of us. And they all ordered beer and they put their beer up on the boards, and I'm sure the players loved to see that. The first check that came in there, all 4 of them got their beers dumped on their laps. And the guy behind us goes, "First time here, huh?" So that was my good memory from that game. Now we'll switch over to some boxing. Back in the 70s, used to rent arenas, armories, or whatever, and have closed circuit TV. And you could go in, pay money, go into these arenas and watch the fight just like you're watching a movie. This is one from Muhammad Ali versus Ken Norton back in the day, 1976. Used to watch all the Muhammad Ali boxing matches. And here's some boxing memorabilia. This is from the 1940s. It's a Lucky Joe mustard jar. They don't put Joe Louis's name on it, but it can be made into a piggy bank. And it has the figure all of Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, one of the greatest boxers of all time. And to go with that, I also have a couple of them were back to sports folk art. Somebody got a couple of them, made salt and pepper shakers out of them, painted them up. They made the holes the same size, but just something different. Pretty much anything is fair game for me. If it's got a famous name, famous school, famous team. Here's the next boxing ticket. This is a fight I went to in Fargo between Scott Ledoux and Mario Molino. Scott Ledoux fought a lot of big name boxers. He never did get to be a champion, but he fought like Ken Norton, um, Larry Holmes, Ron Lyle. I believe he actually had a draw with Ken Norton. And after the fight, I went up to him and I got his autograph. He's on the bottom there. The other 3 people are Minnesota Vikings that were at the fight: Tommy Kramer and Larry Galbraith, I believe, and Greg Coleman. And that was That was one of my more embarrassing experiences in sports memorabilia. I went up to Greg Coleman. This was back in college, had a few brewskis and went up to him, and there was a show on TV called Different Strokes at the time. And the star was a shorter guy named Gary Coleman. So I went up and said, Gary Coleman, and he didn't like that too much. So I apologized to him, and eventually he signed the autograph. But that was embarrassing to call him Gary Coleman instead of Greg Coleman. Now we turn to wrestling. I've got a 1941 World Championship ticket. Sandor Sarro versus Bronco Nagurski. And the referee, you can see stamped across the front, back to boxing, Jack Dempsey was the referee. And you can see the ticket was ripped in half. But whoever had used it was thinking ahead and kept both pieces. And today, it's a nice collectible. And we'll switch over to football now. Here's a pass for the Minnesota Fighting Gophers. 1927, 1928. That was Bronco Nagurski's first year playing football at Minnesota. And the name on the back is a former player that played in 1911. And signed by him. I don't think he was very famous, but it's kind of a unique item to have. And I was down in Texas last winter. I was able to find this ticket for the 1929 Red River brawl between Texas and Oklahoma. Texas won that game 19-0. And these were in a scrapbook. I don't mind the scrapbook material in the back. I just like that. I love the tickets though. And I also got 1930 ticket. Texas also won that game. These were played at what later became the Cotton Bowl. And the third ticket, championship game, Texas high schools, Amarillo versus Tyler, 1930. Here's another unique football ticket. Tuskegee versus Wilberforce. This was played at Soldier Field during the 1933 World's Fair. And everybody likes when their school plays Notre Dame, so I have one of those Minnesota versus Notre Dame tickets. And also have a press pass from 1933 Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. And of course, there's been many games played at Yankee Stadium over the years. There's 1941 New York University versus Missouri. Here's an older NFL stub. Wrigley Field, 1948. Chicago Bears versus the Boston Yanks. And another Texas-related one. 1966, Cowboys versus Philadelphia at the Cotton Bowl. And here's my first NFL game. 1983, Green Bay Packers versus St. Louis Cardinals, Lambeau Field. I was living in Fargo, North Dakota at the time, and I heard tickets went on sale. So I wrote a letter to the Packers office. They sent me 2 tickets, 19 rows up, 45-yard line behind the Green Bay Packers. And the first big touchdown was like a 50-plus yard touchdown pass from Lynn Dickey to John Jefferson. was an exciting game. Packers kind of blew out the Cardinals that day, but it was still great to be at Lambeau Field. And then I have 3 Super Bowl tickets. Here's Super Bowl 21 at the Rose Bowl. Here's Super Bowl 27. I'm sorry, 17. Got to get my Roman numerals right here. I was also at the Rose Bowl. And here's a game that I went to myself that was in Minnesota, Washington versus Buffalo. My dad and I went to the game together. With the prices of tickets nowadays, unless I win the lottery, probably be the only Super Bowl I get to. We paid $177 a piece for these. Super Bowl 26. Had a good time. Get the NFL experience. Did all the tents outside and everything. It was a fun day. Now, one other Super Bowl item I have is a bus pass for Super Bowl 7. Now we can get into some baseball. I've got some other collectibles besides the tickets. Here's a souvenir World Series coin from 1945. And of course that was Detroit versus Chicago. Detroit won the series. Here's a 1930s Dizzy Dean winner's pin. You could get these in grape nut cereal back in the day, circa 1935. There's also another pin baseball bat with a ball attached. And one more item here is a 1936 Jimmy Fox Spencer Shoe Baseball Club pin. It's got a little damage to it, but I'm fine with that. And one other item, a matchbook from Cuba, circa 1950, Guillermo Borbon. I haven't been able to find any information on him. There's some biographical information on the back. And it still has the matches inside. It's in really great shape. One of my favorite pieces. So we get back to some ticket stubs. 1914 Indianapolis Indians, American Association. What's cool about this one is it has the home games listed on the back, the schedule. And then I have 3 ticket stubs. Games A, B, and C from the 1948 Junior World Series between St. Paul and Havana. These are the first 3 games that were played in St. Paul, game A, B, and C. And here's a 1949 ticket stub. Jackie Robinson played in this game. And I do have a Jackie Robinson piece here. It's a 1950s candy lid. It came on a clear plastic dish that was underneath, and you would tip it over, tip a little bit. You can see where the hinges were and take the candy out. I do not have the bottom piece, I only have the top. I've got a full ticket from the 1958 World Series at County Stadium. Yankees won that year, defeating the Braves. And I have a pin that goes along with that. Milwaukee Braves, National League champions, with a ribbon that has all the player names on it. Matthews, Aaron, Adcock, Spawn, Burdett. And here's a 1963 World Series stub. Yankees were defeated by the Dodgers that year. I've got a piece of 1960s Yankees. This is a glass from John Blanchard's liquor store in Golden Valley, Minnesota. That's a John Blanchard there. You can see the facsimile signatures on the glass. Mickey Mantle, Bobby Richardson, Roger Maris, Moose Skowron, Whitey Ford, Elston Howard. I always liked that glass. And here's a stub from the 1965 All-Star Game in Minnesota. Sandy Koufax's only victory in the All-Star Game. And I also have a Volpe glass depicting Sandy Koufax, Los Angeles Dodgers. It's a thermal glass. Keep your drink cold or warm. And I also have a 1963 Hall of Fame bust of Babe Ruth. These came in boxes, and they're still relatively inexpensive if someone wants to collect them. They're plastic, but they look pretty cool. And I have here's a 1965 World Series stub. Twins versus the Dodgers. Here's a Armin Killebrew pin from the 65 series. A coin from Minnesota, American League champions, first World Series. Here's a pin depicting I was there for the first World Series. I was not there, but this is from someone else. The Maury Wills pin back from the 65 World Series. And a 6-inch Minnesota Twins team photo button from the 65 World Series. In 1968 season pass for the Minnesota Twins. Unused. One of my favorite players from that era was Tony Oliva. I got this ball in spring training. A friend of mine, we paid some extra money to go to a Boys and Girls Club's autograph session with the Twins, and I went up to Tony with an index card, and he goes, "What's this piece of paper?" He'd just kind of giving me a bad time, laughing while he's doing it. So I stepped away and to let some other people get autographs, and Tony yells, "Hey!" He throws me a baseball signed by him, and this is it. Next we have a 1985 All-Star Game ticket stub. And along with that, I have the 1985 All-Star Game license plate. It's really in nice shape. And they had the first home run derby at that All-Star Game. I believe it was Jim Rice that won it. 1991 World Series ticket. And here's a 6-inch button for the 91 team. And here's the controversial piece that I have from that from that series. Here's Ron Gant and Kent Herbeck According to Minnesota fans, Kent Herbeck got run into by Ron Gant and they fell together. According to Atlanta fans, Kent Herbeck tackled Ron Gant. So that's a controversy that will never get settled. My last ticket, here's Paul Molitor's 3,000 hit game ticket signed by Paul Molitor. And one other item, I do have a souvenir pin from the 1965 All-Star Game. And again, congratulations to Sammy Thunder. And I want to thank everybody for watching and hope everybody has a great day. Thank you very much.